Hello, members, and welcome to a special screening and viewing of some latest research from our good partners at Uber. Today, we've got three special guests, Shalise, Erin, and Dara, who are going to be talking about this research and walking you through it. Over to you guys.
Thanks so much, Sam, and it's awesome to be here with you all, even virtually today. My name is Shalise. I lead agency development here at Uber Ads, and as Sam said, I am joined by Erin, who leads our non-endemic business, and Dara, who is your sales rep across all non-endemic brands here for the Indie patch. Today, we are very excited to share with you the findings from our latest proprietary research, which is a real-world eye tracking study that we conducted with Lumen, which measures attention across the Uber platform. We've paired those results with some insights from another survey that we ran in partnership with Ipsos, which looks at the emotional and attitudinal drivers behind attention, as well as brand outcomes across both our mobility and delivery moments. And then to round it out, we've also just included in here today some of the original research theory from Amplified Intelligence. If you were in media when that foundational attention research was launched back in 2020, then you will recognise some familiar frameworks here. So think of the presentation really as your full attention mix, from real behaviour to real feelings and real impact, all brought together in one powerful story. So to kick off, I'm going to hand over to Erin.
Thanks, Shalise. My favourite starting slide. Do you remember life before Uber? How you ordered takeaway and how you got about? It feels like a real throwback to me now when I reflect on what that time looked like for me. But if I think, I'd say Friday nights were definitely my favourite in my house as I grew up with my siblings, because we'd pull open that loaded drawer underneath the phone of all the local takeaway menus and then fight about who was going to get to order their favourite cuisine that week. And the physical cab charges. You know, if you were in media back then, not revealing ages, but the actual cab charges that you get from your business to get home safely from a party, it was crazy. But you can tell how essential Uber is to all our lives now, and it's really hard to think back to life before it.
Just called you an Uber.
He's my Uber driver.
Call me Uber.
Or needs an Uber. Anyone call for an Uber?
It's a Uber. Uber. Yeah, I should be an Uber driver.
Nick, you think I have Uber?
No mince? Should have just called Uber.
Call you an Uber.
Uber? Am I your Uber? No, I'm
just get an Uber.
Uber.
Okay, we should probably call an Uber.
Because there's an Uber waiting downstairs.
My Uber driver looked just like Adam Driver.
So just get me an Uber.
Uber driver Varys is here.
Oh, look. Your Uber's here. All right.
We got there. Sorry about that. So I Googled it, I photoshopped, I Ubered there. Dara, our CEO, definitely had that North Star vision. Every business does, and it's the ultimate goal of becoming part of everyday life. And Uber has reached it. We are both now a verb and a noun embedded in how people move through their day. We're not just about the brand that people choose, we're an everyday utility. And that's so powerful, because once a behavior becomes a habit, it's almost impossible to unsee. It's just like when Microsoft told us to Bing it. And that's the difference between awareness and a true habit. In their convenience economy, the ultimate win is automatic habitual usage. And it's when your product becomes a verb, you've entered that realm of essentials, akin to electricity, gas, or the internet bills that you're paying. You're part of the culture, part of the conversation, and permanently top of mind. But definitely my favorite, when I start to get really nostalgic, I think about the fond memories I have of these experiences on the screen in front of you, of going with my parents to pick up the travel brochures and plan out your holidays based on the best pictures for each country, or of being on road trips and the uncertainty of where you're actually going to stop and which motel is actually going to have availability to fit all 5 or 6 of you in the family. Or my personal favourite of heading to Video Easy on that Friday night before our takeout and being able to negotiate, you're going to have 2 overnights or 1 overnight and 3 weeklies, and even get a PlayStation game. That was a really nice Friday nights. But that is what we used to have. And when we think about what we have today, these moments of travel planning, booking accommodation, and finding something to watch on that Friday, they're all at our fingertips. And sure, at first glance, these are really feeling like common places of evolution for consumers embracing technology for ease of living. But without question, the past decade has seen convenience shift from that competitive advantage to the absolute baseline expectation. And anything less than a seamless experience feels to a consumer like friction. And convenience is such a huge part of our Aussie culture. We all know it and we all feel it. We live in one of the world's most time-poor, on-the-move nations, and Aussies more than ever are valuing that ease and flexibility and moments that flow seamlessly. And Uber is there for all of them. And it's not just about getting the ride or a meal anymore. It's about owning the everyday rhythm of how Australians live, move, and shop. And we know that consumers are not just choosing convenience, but they're willing to pay more for it. And as you can see, we've experienced significant growth over the past 7 years. And even after the pandemic, we're seeing healthy growth. And it's during really tough economic times. So people are spending over $60 billion in our apps today. And this is the reality. We're being saturated with messages across all digital channels, platforms, articles, messages, ads. It's just insane. You know it. We're all in the industry, so we're more hyper aware of that than anyone else. But my favorite, and I will say I was too embarrassed to put my screen up here because I'm probably times 10 of Shalice here, but I'm sure you all have a home screen like this, filled with hundreds, if not, in my case, thousands of notifications, and can't even get through the friends messages, the family DMs and chats, let alone emails. And don't even get me started on ads because I'm not even seeing them at all at the moment. And so that's the real challenge for advertising, is that consumers are just being bombarded with thousands of ads every single day. And the reality of them is most of them are getting ignored. And the fight for attention has never been harder. And it's the old ways of capturing it just aren't cutting it anymore. And so on that, I'm going to pass over to Shalice to take you through Uber's unique advantage and into the research.
Thanks, Erin. And so in that world where we know it's really hard as marketing and media specialists to have our ads actually have attention paid to it, Uber does have a unique advantage. We already have millions of users who are deeply engaged with the app. They're deeply engaged because they're doing things like tracking their ride, understanding which side of the road they need to stand on, intently looking at how far away their delivery drivers are. And each of these moments creates this really natural state of high attention. And it's very different to kind of a passive scrolling app environment. And so this built-in high attention environment, we know creates an opportunity for brands to seamlessly connect with customers in the right moment when they're already paying attention. And, we built the ad experience quite purposefully that way. These ads were built into these moments of high attention because they're the formats that we actually used to drive our own business. There is still a huge amount of demand which gets driven from Uber Rides to Uber Eats and Uber Eats to Uber Rides. And that's actually what these formats were originally created for. It was about how we were driving growth for our own business. But as we evolved into an ad business, there were other ways that we certainly looked to enhance that ad experience. And through one of them was around the way we sell those ad formats being on 100% share of voice. So you are the only brand for the duration of somebody's ride or order. And so we knew intuitively that this would drive really strong attention on the platform, but we were also very conscious and aware that we needed a third-party partner to help verify that. And that's really the reason that we partnered with Lumen and Ipsos, was to understand the impact that these naturally high attention environments where you are running with 100% share of voice, what does that actually equal to in terms of attention? And one of the first things that we found in partnership with Ipsos was actually that when customers are coming to both Uber Eats and Uber Rides, that they're actually feeling in an incredibly positive mindset. Whilst the order of these 5 feelings change depending on which app they're using, the top 5 were actually still the same. So customers are telling us that they feel accomplished, efficient, productive, safe, and successful when they're using the platform. And if you think about your own usage, if you're running late to that meeting and you choose to get an Uber instead of walking, you're obviously filled with that sense of achievement and accomplishment, because you're not going to be late to the meeting. And so when we talk about 100% share of voice and this being a high state of natural attention, this is exactly what we're talking about here in terms of the difference that it makes to the attention on your ad. The one on the left is an example of a journey ad. And as we said, you are the only ad on screen for the duration of somebody's ride, whereas on the right is an example of when you're in a scrolling environment and just how many ads within that same auto category that you can be exposed to. And so we needed to choose a partner that was able to really understand and put numbers behind just how powerful that positioning and that time on screen really is. And so we partnered with Lumen to run a real-world eye tracking survey so that we could understand not just how long was that ad on screen, but how long were customers actually actively looking at that piece of creative. And what we found was that on average, Uber ads within both the Uber Rides and Eats platform drove up to 6.6 times more attentive seconds than most other online channels. So that ranges from everything from YouTube skip and non-skip right down to mobile display. So what that shows is not only does the 100% share of voice, yes, give you a long opportunity to see the ad is in view for more than 100 seconds, but also we now understand that customers are in fact looking at the ad which is on screen for the duration of the trip. And whilst getting attention is one thing, and we know it's very important, it's also not enough. We know that you have to be able to actually sustain attention long enough to be able to drive any recall and brand impact. And this is where the original attention theory comes into play. This was an original study from Amplified Intelligence that found 2 things. One was that you need to have active attention of at least 2.5 seconds on the ad for your brand's message to be able to be committed to memory at all. So 2.5 seconds of continuous attention. But then what they found in this study was that for every additional second of active attention, it drove another up to 3 days in memory retention, so another 3 days worth of recall. And so what this means is that advertisers don't need to just reach users or get the attention of users, but you need to be able to sustain it long enough to drive any impact. But Amplified Intelligence found that when they were looking at more than 1,150 brands across 130,000 digital ad views, that 85% of all digital ads did not make that 2.5 second threshold. So what that means is that most digital ads are actually being wasted because they're not being viewed long enough to be able to be committed to recall. And if you just think back to that scrolling example that we showed you, you can start to understand how easy it is for an ad to be in view, but not actually viewed long enough to be committed to recall. So the next thing that we looked at with Lumen was to understand the attention curve across Uber. And what you can see in the squiggly blue line at the top there, which is the attention on the Uber formats, you'll see that not only are we able to retain engagement well beyond that 2.5 second mark, you'll actually see how slow the Uber decay is. We call that the sustained attention zone. And that's where real brand recall and impact is able to happen. So as you look there and compare to other platforms that lose a very large percentage of their audience within seconds and a very large proportion of their audience before that critical 2.5 second mark, with Uber, you're able to keep users engaged for longer, meaning that we're not just delivering views, but we're actually delivering meaningful and sustained engagement. So we know that we're capturing attention. We know that we're able to hold on to it beyond that critical 2.5 second mark. We then wanted to be able to verify that that is in fact driving recall and consideration on our platform. And the good news is that the Lumen research found that we are. So when Lumen looked at the relationship between how long someone was looking at the ad and how many of them went on to recall it, we found that over 50% of all of our audiences who were exposed to the ad for more than that 2.5 second mark went on to recall the ad that they were exposed to. So in other words, our Lumen research verifies that OG research from Amplified Intelligence that shows that that 2.5 second mark is in fact that recall point. And in fact, the longer that someone is exposed to the ad, so in our case, it was for 5 seconds or more, that recall rate increasingly continued to go up. So we know that our format is garnering attention, we know that it is sustaining attention, and we know that it is also able to drive recall. We then wanted to have a look at those results across both demographics and different verticals. So this is referring back to some of our Ipsos research, which showed that our ability to drive recall is very consistent across generations. Our reach is very strong on Gen Z and millennials. And so it's really comforting to see, particularly for that Gen Z audience where it can be really hard to cut through with them. It was really strong to see that ads on Uber are in fact driving recall amongst those really hard to capture Gen Z and millennial audiences. So then we went on to ensure, to check to see if that recall and that attention was leading to uplifts and brand consideration. And what we saw is that sustained attention and recall across the platform is in fact leading to some incredible brand lift results. So across Uber and Uber Eats average, you can see that in the study, we were able to drive a 27% uplift in consideration for those exposed users. And for anyone that's been in the industry as long as I have, you'll understand that that is a crazy high number to be able to generate within one single campaign period. So a really, really strong result there. But what's really good to see is that since we've partnered with Kantar across the last 12 months, we are consistently seeing those strong brand lift results repeat time and time again, to the point that Kantar actually has told us that we are in the top 10% for all platforms globally at being able to drive brand consideration and favorability. So the Kantar results really are backing up that real world study from Lumen that says that our platform is able to take that share of voice, turn it into sustained attention, and then be able to drive strong brand lift off the back of it. So that's awesome for campaigns where you're wanting to drive a brand outcome, but what if you're working on a campaign that requires sales or outcome-based results? So again, starting back here with the Amplified Intelligence theory from 2021, that study found that there is a direct correlation between the number of active attentive seconds and your likelihood to drive stays. So stays in this study stands for short-term action sales. And so what they found is that the higher the number of active attentive seconds, the more likely somebody is to go on and make a purchase within that same event. And so we asked customers who were exposed to our video ads on both Uber Rides and Uber Eats, but starting with Uber Rides here, who had gone on to take any action after having seen an ad. And these results were fairly incredible. So 80% of our respondents claimed that once exposed to an ad on Uber, they went on to take an action immediately. Now, those actions can range from looking up your brand on social media to going to your brand's website, through to that holy grail of 37% claim to go on and order from the brand immediately within that same session. If we then have a look at the results from Uber Eats specifically, still a really strong number here where 71% claimed that they go on to take an action immediately within that same session. And unsurprisingly, with Uber Eats being a platform where you can purchase almost anything, that top ad action there of 39% being people going on to purchase from the brand, being a little bit higher than Uber rides makes sense. So what you can see here is that from our platform delivering your brand 100% share of voice, and being able to actually genuinely capture attention through a sustained attention zone, we're able to drive really strong brand recall, but also importantly brand consideration. And also, therefore, because of that sustained attention, we're able to drive impact within the same session as well. But to take you from the theory into some real world examples, both from our friends that we've been working with across a number of IMAA agencies, but also from some of your top categories, I'm now going to hand over to Dara to talk about how brands have been really taking that sustained attention and turning it into outcomes for their brands on the platform.
Thanks, Elise. To reintroduce myself, my name is Dara Butler, client partner on the non-endemic vertical, and super excited to take you through a few case studies today. So on screen, our first example is from Red Rock Deli, where they targeted wine drinkers as they ordered on Uber Eats, looking to build a connection between Red Rock Deli and this key snacking moment. Not only did we successfully increase association for Red Rock Deli with this key moment, but we also drove great engagement and 55% increase in an attachment rate of every single order. Next is my favorite, which is CBA Pet. So CBA Pet Insurance looked to connect with pet owners in the moment that their furry friend were top of minds, whether that be adding some food to their grocery order, some dog food to their grocery order, or whilst they're in an Uber Pet with their precious cargo. The contextual nature of this targeting allowed for very strong engagement, with PCO video delivering 3.85% CTR. Laura loves a bargain. Whether it's $5 off an Uber pool or a discount with their Uber Eats order, the good guys targeted footy fans that have an eye for a deal. The team drove really strong CTR of 4.5%, driving really strong traffic to store for their big brand TV sales. Next is Carnival Cruises. What Carnival were looking to do was target personal profiles of families that frequently domestically travel. Carnival Cruises were able to target the decision makers that not only order the family Uber Eats, whether that be grocery or takeaway, but also who books the Ubers, whether it be zoos, theme parks, and beaches, driving really strong post-checkout ad engagement with 5.42% CTR on this one. Next is Vodafone with a student exclusive offer. And this was brought to life by targeting students that were yet to sign up for the network. They did this by looking at student trips, whether it be to unis or student accommodations, and also targeting Uber One student members, whether that be on Eats or on rides. And clearly this showed really great engagement as we saw a 4.45% CTR on our journey ad placement. Next is the New Zealand example for Coke. They were looking to target young music lovers as they were giving away Coachella tickets. What they did was they looked at, okay, who are the users that frequently attend live music venues? Who are the ones that attend gigs live? And who are the ones that go to festivals? Importantly, you'll notice this is, of course, a full funnel platform that we are able to actually have additional units sold that covered the cost of the campaign. So not only did they drive strong completion and entries, but of course, additional units sold. In 2024, Lululemon added a new face to their roster, Sir Lewis Hamilton. What better way to announce it than to be the first and last brand a user sees attending the Melbourne F1? A combination of high CTR and average duration showed that the audience clearly loved this contextual targeting. And finally is Audi. What they were looking to do is showcase the brand new Q3 and Q5 model to our most affluent users. So who would these include? It would be Uber Black users, high network postcodes, and our top spenders on platform. And clearly this drove really great engagement on platform of 115 seconds, as well as site traffic for this launch. 3.15% was our top on post checkout. Great. So what does this mean for your advertisers? There's 3 key takeaways that we want for you to take away from this presentation. 1, Uber delivers and sustains high attention, outperforming most platforms by 6.6 times. Not only is Uber in the top 10% of Kantar campaigns globally, but we deliver the necessary recall for brands fast. Finally, attention leads to action, and over 70% of users go on to take an action after seeing an ad on. And right now, we have an exclusive offer. If you have a new client that could be a great fit for Uber, please get in touch and we will have 30% of the value and a brand lift study for any campaign signed off before November 30th. Thank you so much for your time today, and I'm going to pass it back to Sam to close.
Thank you, guys. That was super interesting. You're doing some really interesting things within the brand. Thank you for your time, members, for tuning in, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.